upcoming discussion panel will look at the past decade in the creative industry. Please welcome the panelists Anna Mill, illustrator from the London studio Liquid City, generative and motion designer Kiel D. Mutschelknaus, Tomasz Zibek, a scholar from the Institute of Philosophy of the Czech Academy of Sciences, and Carlos El Asmar, the founder of Motionographer. The discussion will be moderated by our very own Vít Zemčík.
All right, hello, thank you, and welcome back after lunch break. Just first information, Tomáš Zibek just let us know that he's unfortunately not able to make it today, so we're just going to be four of us in this panel. But we have you, and I hope you have a lot of questions prepared for the panel as well. And I think it's going to be interesting. I think 45 minutes talking deeply about the past decade in creative industry and maybe the upcoming one. First, practical information. Feel free to use this URL here, if you can see it, machine.mouvo.cz/ask. And you can put up there any question you would like to ask anybody from the panelists. I will then decide which one we use and put up on the screen. And I would like to start this discussion panel with a bit of a personal approach. And I would like to ask each one of you, what were you doing 10 years ago, and how does it differ from what you're doing at the moment?
Shall I start?
Yeah, you can start. Each one of you can get your own microphone.
Is it going?
Yeah.
Yes, okay. Okay, so 2015.
Yes.
So I was working on a comic book. It was 8 years of work, so I would have been just over halfway through, which means I would have been feeling really bad about everything because it was a project that was meant to be 3 years long. And so I was very, very long overdue. And I was working completely differently, working pencil and paper, not digital at all. Feels like actually a lifetime ago.
Cool.
Yeah, I was 10 years ago teaching at the university in Maryland Institute College of Art and Design in Baltimore. And I was teaching, starting to learn motion stuff. I had come from a kind of illustrative design background, and I kind of thought that's what I'd be doing, but I was playing around with motion, and in order to teach it, I had to learn a lot of it. So I think 2015, I was starting to learn After Effects a little bit more, teach some of those tools, teaching typography classes, stuff like that. And that was also when my first son was born, and I know you also have a 10-year-old. So yeah, wow, 10 years ago. All right.
Carlos, how about you?
In 2015.
Yeah.
Well, I didn't have time to masturbate in 2015. I was working in the branding and marketing of the Olympics, the Summer Olympics, the presidential elections, doing F5, teaching at NYU. Do you want me to tell you more? No, yeah, I barely slept in 2015, doing all those things. So, and I was in a little bit of a personal breakup with my husband. So it was a tough time, but a lot of work at the same time.
All right, thank you very much. Yeah, I would say a very interesting decade now passed behind us, to say the least. And I would like to know, what do you think were the most game-changing moments in the last 10 years that had most of the transformative energy for the creative industry? How do you look at it? And then we can maybe just talk about each one of those a bit more in detail. But if you just briefly think about what were these moments.
I would say for me, one of the big ones was COVID. I think for me, the change of work ethic and kind of work structure, for me, when the lockdown happened and we were all at home, I think agencies really opened their doors in terms of who they were looking at to bring in for certain projects. It also just happened that for me, that was when I was on sabbatical from teaching, and I noticed just a lot more kind of an expansion of my commercial practice. And I think, you know, I was doing new and interesting things in my own studio, but I think also, you know, art directors, creative directors were just more open to having a broader range of people that weren't in-house because everybody was at home. So I think, you know, I got a lot more interesting jobs to do. The teams went all online, and really, you know, I've been working at home since, you know, because that's when my kind of commercial freelance practice took off, and so that's kind of where I've stayed. And I think it really established, I guess that's five years ago, a baseline for being able to now work in remote environments and have coworkers that are, you know, a little bit more ephemeral and digital in nature. So for me, that was maybe a biggest one.
I think it also feels like collaborative tools in general really took off in that time as well. Like, I think probably with a big push from COVID, everyone you know, had kind of like shared drives and things, but like particularly sort of live collaboration things like Figma and just being able to kind of pass design information really quickly, like instantly and live between people who weren't just sitting next to each other. It feels like a big change. And that's the sort of kind of, I guess that's the sort of happy side of it. And then I feel like there's a lot of AI terror as well. Well, AI optimism and AI terror at the same time. It really feels to me like a big new change.
Okay. How about you, Carlos? And when you look at the past and your...
Well, for me, well, it was a challenging time for everyone. So I think the beauty was that, talking from the motion design side, that we got to collaborate, we got new tools, new ways of doing remotely, so people that didn't have access to work with other people, because they were not locally, they finally we were able to. But at the same time, the challenge part of that, I think, is lower the monetization of our craft, because now you can work with someone else in another country that will charge less. And as motionographer, my job, I always see that motion design should be paid the way it should be paid. You know, so it has the good sides of now we can collaborate, and the other side, and we look into, you know, I felt that companies now wanted to look to pay less for the work, because we will find workers that will charge less. You know, we will all focus on the bottom of it. I think that's just a transition, because we have to always set up, and I'm working very hard to do that. But I made it accessible to a lot of people too, so it has the good and the bad side of it. That's what I think too, in the creative side, yeah, remote work. If I go into one more Zoom meeting, I'm gonna throw up. So I can't, you know, because smelling people, being in the same room, feeling the energy, you know, brainstorming together, nothing can do that over Zoom and a remote thing. So I'm missing that part, you know.
Yeah, I think this is something that, like, I've done a bit of teaching as well, and it's particularly in that sort of environment that it feels like it's so much more valuable to be in a room together, actually. Like, you know, when I've had days of, I used to teach architecture, and when I've had kind of days that are 15 half-hour tutorials, like on a Zoom call, like back to back, it feels so much harder to kind of like judge someone's mood, like particularly with students. So often it's about kind of imparting skills and knowledge, but it's also about getting a sense of where they are emotionally in that kind of work that they're doing. And it's really important to be in the room with someone to get a sense of kind of how they're feeling, like how their confidence in the project is. And it's very hard to do that kind of, remotely.
Support them emotionally, because, you know, you have a meeting, you know, you give them a brief, this is what I have to do, and they're on their own, right? We already do a solo work. You know, motion design is you are everything. So suddenly you're like disconnected, and you have to be in your own, no one to like feedback, support. So I think that's the challenging part of it. I agree with you completely.
Yeah, I definitely believe that was one of the biggest impacts, and has been seen in many studios that gone either total remote or, you know, like a hybrid mode. Do you think there is a way that things would get back to where they were before, that you would really have like just studios with people that needs to come, you know, like every day sit with everybody with behind computers at one place, or do you think that we're never gonna have this again? Or do you know like of outlets that still prefer and are keeping this running?
Well, selfishly, I hope hybrid is the way to go. You know, I hope we can all exist both physically and digitally, and I totally agree that, you know, nothing can replace the energy of walking by somebody's station and being like, oh, what's that? What are you working on? Bouncing ideas in real time, in real life. But, you know, along with collaborative tools, you know, the amount of communication tools we have now, Slack, Microsoft Teams, you know, like all these modes of communication dropping into a video chat, you know, at the drop of a hat, you know, some of that is filling the gap a little bit. I don't know if they'll return. Hopefully, again, you know, just selfishly, I hope I can still jump into these teams and not have to worry about where I'm physically located, but being able to, you know, work in different time zone is, you know, so liberating. And yeah, I agree. Maybe there's some teams that foster that sort of energy when they're all together, you know.
I think there's also, maybe this is too sort of like pie in the sky thinking, but I think there's also an interesting potential for, you know, when people can work from anywhere. I think it's not just about kind of engaging people who might be, you know, we might be working in London and they might be in Paris or Hong Kong or wherever, but there's also, you know, potentially that, like, if the internet is really good and in kind of far-flung corners of the world, like, I think I have this desire for there to be kind of a return to like the countryside for the kind of tech worker and the design worker as well. Like, you know, you don't have to be in London. You could be kind of wherever. You could be in, you know, the Highlands of Scotland and doing your work. And, you know, we've seen with kind of progressive kind of technological change, this sort of concentration of people into the cities. And there's a potential with like the kind of the connectivity that we have that people can disperse again, and that could be a good thing for, you know, spreading people out and not having all of the power and skill kind of, you know, concentrated in these kind of geographical hotspots. It could kind of disperse around the world.
All right, I think that leads quite nicely to one of the questions from the audience, and that is, how do you approach collaboration? Yeah, I was able to put it up on the slide. So I would slightly add to this, like, what are your suggestions for a healthy collaboration, you know, in this hybrid mode or the current stage that we are doing at the moment? Anybody who wants to start?
Okay, I'll jump in, because I've had a lot of fun recently with collaboration. You know, in my presentation, I talked about building these tools and then working with designers that then use these tools. And for me, like the key there is this constant bouncing back and forth. And we've been able to do that digitally, you know, working with designers in, you know, New York or in Poland. And it's really fun being able to kind of have them drop a few screenshots of what they did, what they're thinking, some of the sketches they're doing, and then me being able to kind of implement that into the tool, push those changes through GitHub, and then, you know, moments later have them see the changes that they wanted in the tool, see new experiments they're doing, seeing like how we can change some of these environments and parameters. So for me, it's kind of this, even if we are in different physical locations and different time zones, having this ability to kind of like bounce back and forth with responses to it. So for me, the collaboration key there, I guess, is open communication.
Yeah, that's good.
Thank you. Yeah, I feel like also there's a kind of key to collaboration, which is to do with the kind of separation and overlap of skill sets. Like, it feels to me like, you know, when you have a really good team, it's to do with, you know, I know that this bit I can handle really well, but I have no idea how to do that next bit. And there needs to be sort of this nice little overlap of understanding between like what you do and what they do, so that you both kind of understand each other, you understand your area really well, and you understand enough of the next person's area a little bit, so that you're not kind of stepping on what they do, and you're not trying to do it for them, but you know like what's possible. And so I think that's when it kind of works really well, is when that kind of the separation and the overlap of the skills is really good. And I think at Liquid City, it often works really beautifully, because we've got kind of like a shared background, but then kind of the different areas of work that we do are quite separate. So I'm always on art and concept side, and Jasper is our technical director, and he has nearly the same background as me, but he's more on technical side. So we've got this kind of shared basis of kind of art and design and architecture and spatial understanding, but our spheres are different, so that we can like hand over between each other really nicely.
Mm-hmm.
Well, collaboration, how do you approach collaboration? Presential or virtual? Because that's very two different ways of doing it, right? I think now that we're working in this hybrid, what I try to do with my team using Slack is not just collaborating, we have the project and he does the color correction and the other one does the editing, is that the editor guy teaches the color corrector how to edit. That's the environment. I always tell everybody in my organization, we are a teaching department, and that's been a challenge, how we keep teaching each other and learning from each other when we're just not focusing on the project. So we created the way we approach collaboration. I made myself sure that we have a Zoom meeting with the group. If I feel that one of the person is not feeling well, to meet with them and figure out how they're feeling and about the scary thing about doing this new project. We play games in Slack. We have in Slack channels like every morning I call it a UI UX game. Check in Motionographer if we have mistakes. I'm always the idiot that finds them, right? So I don't know why. So we play those games, so people get together doing something else, like not just the work, playing games, and to try to have that fun environment, right? That where we pass on our knowledge and pass on our stress, our emotions, and not just focusing on the work. That's how I approach it.
Mm-hmm. I would maybe add on this one, there was one of the questions, not sure if I just quickly find it, but it was about client work, and I wondered if you think that there was a big shift or any shift, like with dealing with the client or like the client's expectations, that if these by any chance have changed during the past 10 years, or are the clients still dealing with the same problems and coming with the same demands?
Why would you looking at me? I'm the most nervous here in my pants, and they look at me. I cannot talk properly about that because you are my clients. The community belongs to you, so I don't have. But because I'm so involved with the studio owners, motion designers, and the struggles of them, I think the clients lately what they want is more for less. Right now they're like demanding more. I think too, which is a wonderful thing too. The clients have had. Because if I go to one more party and I say I'm a motion designer, and they say, "What is that?" I'm gonna cut my wrist. So I think there's now a more educated client, so they know exactly what they want because they're more educated. And so I think for me the most challenging thing I hear from the studio owners is the client wanted to do more with less. The other side from the motion designer is having work-life balance. Right, and that, depending on the age of the person, gives me the willy. So that's what I.
Do you think? I'm interested in whether you think that people want more for less because people need more. Like, do you think it's that our current culture feels like it wants to produce more stuff, or do you think it's because they have less money?
Great question. I think is, motion design right now with the immediacy of social media has become short clips, right? They want it fast and fine. They think that are cheap, you know, and the motion designer, at the end, we're doing a craft, right? How you, whatever you do as a motion designer, I'm gonna say in my presentation, it's a personal work, you know, even as a designer. So the fact that, oh, it's gonna go immediately and 30 seconds later it's gone, they don't wanna pay for it, you know, like even though it took 8 hours or 2 days to do, right? But no, they wanted it fast, rapid, I'm selling this for that. You know, so I think it's both sides we're struggling with, or they are struggling with it. Yeah, answer that question? All right. Yeah, I think so.
I think for me, one of the increases in client demands is, when I think this goes along with everything that's being said, is the speed of things in terms of production, you know? Like, yeah, they want it, you know, a lot and cheap, but I also think the speed and like everything seems to be an emergency and need to go really quickly, you know? And I'm thinking like, why didn't these project managers plot enough time for these things, you know? Like we knew it was coming, and it just feels like everything is on fire. And maybe that's a strategy by project managers to like get them done on time. But for me, the speed just seems like so fast for like when things are coming, and you know, depending on your workflow, you can or cannot accomplish that. And then if you can't, then they're on to somebody else that says that they can. And then your like, you know, ability to just take a breath, you know, is really diminished.
Yeah, I think for me, I feel like I find it quite hard to answer the question, because I feel like I've had kind of different, you know, I've had different jobs that, you know, have either insulated me or kind of put me in direct contact with client in different kind of sectors. So at Liquid City, we've only been going for 3 years, so it's kind of hard to have kind of seen that much change. But I think there definitely does seem, I think especially because we're kind of, you know, we set up as like a VR, AR focused agency. Well, actually, we don't call ourselves an agency, we call ourselves a studio. But it definitely felt like there was more money 3 years ago. Like it felt like we would, you know, we could do a kind of 100-meter long overlay of an entire conference. And, you know, there was kind of, I think it's a symptom of seeing kind of the focus of attention change away from that particular area and towards AI. And I think that there's kind of a shift in attention and money is kind of my perspective.
Yeah, my personal view on the consumption is also that I don't know if it's us or if the companies that are, you know, like running the apps, it's like we want to consume more and more, like probably naturally, I don't know. But what I really liked, one of the latest features of Instagram is the ad break. They've included the ad break on the news feed. And I feel like so refreshing, because when I see the ad break, okay, I'm quitting the app. So I don't spend like on the continuous scroll, you know, like finding more and more pieces, and I just, you know, leave after 3 posts. Amazing feature, I'm really loving it. So I don't know if that was intentional, but it works really well for me. This leads to, I think, a question that could be, you know, like asked anytime. But it's, I think, good moment to have a personal approach, and your view is work-life balance, and how do you personally deal with it? I'm not looking at you, Carlos, intention is just like...
Yeah, well, I mean, I think this is something that plagues all of us, because if you love what you do, you never work a day in your life. But then also, you're never not working, you know? And I think for me, that's the key thing, is like, if you like what you're doing, you sit down at your computer and you're doing all this stuff, and you're like, oh, this is so fun, this is so great. And then you don't really have a moment where you're looking for it to not happen. And so then, rather than it being kind of the peak of working and the trough of, you know, getting off work, you kind of just are at this constant plateau of wanting to do it and existing in this world of doing what you love doing, and you don't really turn off. And I work from home, and so there's like no commute. There's no transitory period between this is the, well, I guess there is. It's like me walking down a flight of stairs, and then I'm in home life. And that's no way to transition, right? Maybe I need a severed innie, going up those stairs. But, it's like for me, always kind of existing with that in the back of the mind. And then if you get like a message from a client or some feedback that maybe like just turns you the right way, right when you walk out the door and you need to turn to family life, I mean, that just reverberates, through the whole day. So I think it's really hard to do that. I think for me, key things have been non-screen related activities, which is becoming increasingly hard to do. Even like my Pelotoning is on a screen. Even my, chilling consumption is on a screen. So it's super hard. So I would suggest pickleball. That's what I say.
All right.
Oh, yeah. Well, for me, the work-life balance is a sore subject for me because I have been a teacher in NYU. I have dealt with freelancers, creative directors in America, in Europe, in Asia. So every continent, every culture has this sense of what is work-life balance. I used to say that in America, especially in New York, which is my husband, we live to work, right? I love Europe, where you work to live, right? I don't know if you know the difference between the two, right? I've been lucky enough to live in Barcelona for 2 years, back and forth from New York, and I love Spain, but I don't know what they call work. That's why I have a particular thing about that. Depends too, this triggers me a lot. As a teacher, I call every generation, oh my God, this generation is the worst than the past. This generation, but this one is 10 times the worst, and I blame social media, right? So right now, I see the younger generation wanting work-life balance from the get-go. They graduate, I want work-life balance. I'm like, are you freaking kidding me? Pick up cables. In your 20s, you learn and party. In your 30s, you earn and party. In your 40s, when you have kids, let's talk about work-life balance. So that's my take on it. It depends. It's a very individual thing, but we are being fed with this. And I agree with you. Do what you love and love what you do. Once you're doing that, you figure out a way what is work-life balance for each individual person. But we're trying to make it a democratized thing. It's evil to work. Because when I hear that, work-life balance, like work is bad and you need to have a work-life balance. No, every culture, everything is all individual for you. What is for you work-life balance?
Yeah?
This is 2025 is my year of being nice to myself, I've decided. So this is actually going to sound very minor when I actually explain what I mean. But I booked for myself a day off work every 2 months, where I don't have to do anything at all. And so and I deliberately booked it on a day where I knew my partner was going to be working and that my baby would be at nursery. And so I just go and have a coffee and do nothing. And I just do nothing. I can go and get back into bed and watch a film if I want. And I've decided that that's a good thing and that I can, it's important and I shouldn't feel guilty about it.
And you said every 2 months?
Every 2 months.
Wow.
Which is not very often. But I think it's more about putting it in the calendar and being these are days where I'm just gonna do exactly what I want and none of it is work. And I think the other thing I was going to say is maybe a slight riposte to what you just said, which is that I really find that the younger people in the office have an attitude about work-life balance and kind of protecting themselves from the demands of work that I actually am quite envious of. And I feel I wonder if the sort of working too hard kind of attitude is something that's going to become the kind of, is going to become something that's our kind of dinosaur attitude. That generation's going to see it as the kind of weird ways that people used to behave, like we see that for kind of, the 50s nuclear family or something. They're going to think why did these people drive themselves to work like that all the time when it wasn't the most important thing in the world? And so I kind of feel a bit like, even though maybe it's frustrating if I feel like, well, that work hasn't been done and you're leaving the office, I sort of also at the same time kind of feel like I respect it.
Just to add, so maybe I was too harsh. I will lynch the idiot that invented 5-day work, 2-day weekend. It should be 4-3. For years I've been saying this. Yeah, so to finish the work-life balance, 4th day of work, 3 days of fun. Actually, I've implemented that in my office. So
That's
yeah.
amazing.
Yeah, and no on vacation, checking emails. I tell them, I will not approve your next vacation if I see an email from you or a Slack from you. No, when you disconnect, you need to disconnect. Because actually, you do a disservice if when you're doing whatever it is that you call your life or the fun, and you're checking your emails and checking work, you're not turning off the machine. Right? Where we are creatives, you're doing a disservice to yourself. When you need to disconnect really, right? So that's my take.
Good one. By the way, if anybody wants to join, with your opinion in the discussion, that's totally fine. And we have microphones, and even you can ask a question in person. That doesn't have to be just on the screen. So that's a gentle reminder. And if anybody wants, just raise your hand or shout at us. Until then, I would just quickly pull up another question from the audience, which is about the pace of innovation. That's, of course, it has ever been increasing, since of the telegraph, whatever, even before. But I think, and I'm really interested, how you personally, and how important is it for you to keep track with the latest tools? And if there hasn't been any particular interest, in these slate, and if it's interesting for you to keep up with the latest technology, and how do you look at it?
I'm quite bad at it.
Do you have FOMO out of it, or is are you
No.
okay? No.
I think I'm quite lazy, and I sort of rely on the other very smart and well-informed people in the office to tell me what I should be paying attention to. And I think it's partly to do with this kind of work-life balance thing. Again, it's I want to do my work and do it really well, and it would be fine if I had an hour that was scheduled in my work time that was for scrolling the internet and finding out about stuff, but that's not really how my time works. So I don't want to be doing that in my spare time. Of course, I'm interested in new advances in technology, and particularly because it's a field that I work closely in. But if I'm at home and I have time to be kind of looking at news, then I would rather be at home and reading a book or something.
I cannot talk properly about it because I haven't sat and do an animation or sat on After Effects in 20 years. But before that, when I started when I was 15, I had that anxiety of the new tool, the new software, learning new thing. I started in Cosa, later changed it to After Effects, and later 3D, which was another science fiction movie. I understand the anxiety always be with the latest tools, but I can talk properly now. The only thing I can mention based on the anxiety of the community in motion design from Motionographer's perspective is with AI. The AI tool, how to learn it. For me, it's I call ChatGPT Pepe, my boyfriend. That's the only interaction I've had. I have now sat, until create an image. I try a little bit to see how it works, so too knowledgeable. But I feel that tool in particular, it's the one that's creating the most anxiety. I feel that half of the industry feels it's the devil, and the other half feels it's Jesus, right? So right now we're in that phase. It's gonna be like another tool. I think it is, now in Motionographer we try to differentiate between what was done completely in AI and what was done in traditional motion design. And I told Fermin, the editor-in-chief, I told him, we started a year ago, give it 6 more months, And AI is going to be like another credit, because it's never going to meet a superpass or human imagination. It's just another tool. Even if we feel that anxiety, done. Just that anxiety is beautiful. It means that you want to learn. You want to be ahead. You know, don't let it take it over you. That's what I learned when I was doing it.
Yeah, I think keeping up with tools is important. I think I always struggle with it because I have a background of a BA in art where it was like heavily about craft and like really learning a tool and investing yourself and mastering that and doing things over and over again. And then I kind of brought that forward into all these other areas where it's like, okay, well, I want to learn motion. I need to thoroughly learn everything about this. I need to become a master of it. And I think at some point, I just needed to let that go and realize that, you know, there's so many fields to dip your toes in that you don't have to be a master in all of them. You know, maybe it's more about, at the end of the day, you know, like executing on a vision. So if it means downloading Cavalry for one thing, then we do that and we watch the tutorials, and there's so much documentation out. So it's something I love to do, but I still struggle with the feeling that like every time I immerse myself in a new area, that I'm totally inadequate in it, you know, and sometimes there's an AI tutorial there or a demo or a prompt you can ask to learn some more of these things, which has been super helpful. But I mean, yeah, it's my list of things I want to learn just gets longer and longer every year, and I never tick them off, you know. So yeah, it's important, but a constant struggle.
I feel like though we need you and we also need me in the creative world.
Okay, deal.
because I think that it is really important, and I think that like people who can turn their hand to anything and have the motivation to kind of keep up and kind of dabble in lots and lots of things have this amazing ability to kind of like connect the dots across all kinds of different kind of tools and technologies. But I think that we also we do need the kind of master craftsman to still be there. I'm not calling myself the master craftsman. I mean, I'm calling myself the lazy kind of one skill person. And I think that my worry is that, you know, if we all become people who can do a bit of everything, then you still need some people who are the sort of kind of deep knowledge raiser on like a particular thing to be able to say, yeah, it's great that you did all of these things, but like this bit of it is not good enough. Like I think we need both of these all the time.
Yeah, 100%. You know, I think when I'm being a tourist, you know, in all of these different avenues, you know, as soon as I leave, it's entirely forgotten, you know, and the next time I have to do it, it's the same Google searches over, it's the same prompts, and it like entirely leaves my brain, which is not great and not efficient whatsoever. So like an immersion in a field, totally, I wish we would all have the time to do those things, and maybe there's some sort of time-bending technology ahead of us, but you know, I would love, yeah, that level of craft, and I totally appreciate it. Yeah.
Right. Now, just a slight question to the direction of the screen. I had a video prepared. If we can put it up on the screen, it's a little bit of a blast from the past that I wanted to share with you. So I hope we have it ready. If not, we can just continue the discussion. But I would like to get it there. Oh yeah.
The way we communicate is changing, and we're using way more visuals to communicate, and we're going to in the future.
This is a good question. I mean, nowadays you have so many options, so many softwares that you can learn, and it's such a time-consuming. I mean, at the moment, the game engines are amazing. It's amazing what you can do in it, and a lot of young people and students of motion design, they start doing the animations in game engines. I can imagine that in a few years, everything what I learned so far will be like no value. It will have no value.
I think the future is the virtual reality.
Well, not only virtual reality, but the game engines, so Unity and Unreal.
It's always going to be something that helps sort of create a mood in an exhibit space, on film, on TV if it's even going to exist. I think in the future it will definitely be more environmental, but it'll still have the same meaning, that it's a way of conditioning the senses, or it's a way of delivering a message.
We're facing huge problems in the world, environmentally, socially. We could potentially use this skill of visual communication to address some of these challenges and work towards solutions and really visualize how a better future could look like.
I think motion design will become more and more a part of our lives. We already see it now in the interface design we have on our smartphones. As we engage more and more with screens, both personal screens and in the environment, I think motion design will just become more and more crucial to our everyday lives.
Okay, so that was actually from the very first edition of Mouvo from the 2015, when we asked a question of our speakers back then, what is the future of design? Yeah, nobody back then thought of AI, generative AI, and things like that. But I think when we hear these ideas, I think some things still persist, you know, and they are still the same, which I think is quite magical about the creative industry. Still, and as you, Carlos, mentioned, you know, this kind of like a devil and, you know, Jesus position towards generative AI, and Kiel mentioned that never-ending list of learning tool or of learning of new tools. That leads me to just thinking about how all these things relate to the education in the creative industry, you know, and like how this should maybe transform or keep up with everything so that all the students that want to get into the creative industry can stay relevant and, you know, like learn the appropriate things. Is it still the same values, still the same knowledge, or do we need to adapt or do things differently? And what are your opinions on this, on the education process, actually?
The future of design or academia?
I think academia rather, or like educating new people in the creative industry.
I mean, I'm sorry, I'm half deaf, I'm half blind, but I smell very well. What?
How do you think that the teaching process or education needs to adapt?
Well, I was just, I don't know, I feel, but I cannot talk properly about that too because I left academia 10 years ago, but my closest interaction was when I went to CoMotion 2 weeks ago at SCAT, and I got a bad taste in my mouth. And like they're teaching motion designers to follow trends, you know, not challenge them creatively. Just this is what you need to do. They tell a student this should be red, and the student asks, why is it red? No, because it has to be, and that's not letting them explore. Because at the end, I said it before, if you talk about the future of motion design, because that question is so loaded, every 10 years I ask the same thing, but motion design, at the end, I think the future is more empathetic doing motion design because it's our connection and interaction between screens and interfaces, and especially with AI. It's going to come to a point where we're going to go out right to our homes, and there's going to be holograms, you know, instead of, you know, AR. It's going to be like you're going to be interacting with your own home with motion design. So the more empathetic, the future of motion design is making it more empathetic in a human level for me. Forget the tools, forget the new colors, and in academia, I feel that they're just trying to follow trend. You know, the stress of this, you know, immediacy. I need motion design because social media has to be done fast. You know, they're forgetting the soul of the creative. Because, like I said before, motion design is a personal thing. Even if you have a Nike brief or you're doing it just to express yourself, at the end, the work you do, guys, is very personal, right? So in academia, my little taste that I got. I cannot talk properly here. I think you guys know more. You're a teacher. I love it. So you can take it from here.
I don't teach anymore, but it's been a few years. And you know, like when I was back there, yeah, there's always the students that will bring the on-trend stuff and the stuff that they've seen on social media. And I think there will always be a place for design academia. I think maybe it's not so much the lectures or the presentations, but more the interaction between students. I think for me, the fostering of those conversations is where the real magic of the whole thing takes place, you know? So I know there's tons of people that are self-taught in the field, and that's incredible, and they do really beautiful things, but I also think there's a lot to be said for the community between that happens during a critique or presentation or all of the little bits between the bits, you know? For me, that's like where the real education happens. And in addition to that, like how technology plays into it, I think maybe the most beneficial lessons when I was in school was the teaching how to learn, you know, rather than the final thing, teaching a student how to like be open to the fact that they will not walk out knowing everything. So not knowing all of the technologies, but the instilling on them the desire to want to learn that stuff and not thinking, this is it, I've got all the tools, but more like, I don't know that I have, or I know I don't have all the tools, and kind of giving them this thirst to encourage to like want to be able to embark on more journeys post-education. And I think now that's maybe more and more important, to have this community, but then also to have a desire to continue learning even post-graduation or whatever education.
Yeah, I think to kind of specifically address any kind of like looming like AI tool stuff in education, I think that it just has to be kind of folded into to how people are learning, because there's no point in kind of banning people from using it when, you know, when they get out into industry, they're going to be able to use it anyway, and everyone around them will be able to. So I think it's more about like teaching people kind of to kind of know on what level it's useful. Like, you know, it doesn't feel like it's good to use it. You know, if you can just say, you know, generate me a sort of, you know, I can't think of an example now, but like, give me a 4-second ident with a red circle and a triangle and make it funny, and then it does the thing, then, you know, you're not making the decisions on a granular enough level for you to be A, learning, and B, feel like you're the author and the creator of that piece. But I can see kind of, you know, if that's just a kind of like shortcut to like a wider, bigger idea that you've got, and in which you are really making sure that you're in control of the creative process, and all of these things are just tools that you're completely in control of, and you've got this kind of granular understanding of like what you're asking it to do and why you're asking that of it, then I think that should become part of the process.
All right. Do we have any question in the audience that you would like to ask personally? Yeah? We do. Can we get there a microphone?
Hello. Let me see if I can phrase this properly. Some of the anxieties when you were talking about the work-life balance seem to be big things, bigger than an individual, bigger than the industry maybe. Just curious if you have any thoughts about collective bargaining and unions.
Oh, interesting.
I couldn't hear it.
Okay.
The question was about unions.
The unions.
Yeah. I think I'm pro union, but I don't know what union I could join is the problem. There was a movement, you know, as someone who's come from the architecture industry, there was a movement in the UK, I don't know if it was worldwide, but there was a movement for architects to unionize, which was very, very interesting. And I followed it quite closely, but as someone who is now not in the architecture industry anymore, I'm not quite sure what happened with it and what the benefits would be. But it seems like a very important thing to be able to kind of allow people to be able to kind of collaborate together, to be able to have the kind of collective power to be able to influence decisions that otherwise they're not able to kind of have any say over.
You want me to throw the atomic bomb right now about unions? Do you have time to talk about unions? I've been crucified, chased down by unions because of working in corporate America. I worked first in Disney, and the union, I will always feel, oh my God, I'm warm. They put my voodoo doll in the microwave, right? Unions will hate me. And on NBC Universal, the same thing. I believe in unions because what happens when you create unions is some evil force that you need to protect yourself from. Yes, I understand it comes from the 20s, factories, overworked children, all of that. In a creative world, unions, right? Instead of like unions, I think associations is what we need. And Motionographer has been working on to creating a motion design association, that protect each other, right? Create best practices booklets, helping each other. A union per se, it has a feeling that you have to protect against something evil, right? Something that is bad. Yes, there's place for unions right now, like factories and all that, but in the creative world, I think constrains the creativity instead of protecting it, protecting the employee. I still have to develop more of that. I did even my thesis about that. So there is a place for unions. I don't think for creative world, in my opinion.
I think my biggest fear with AI is not so much what it means for a creative working, but more for the larger budgets and the higher ups. And so I think if a collective bargaining approach can somehow help protect against that, then I think for me that's the most kind of protection that I would look for, because I think all this anxiety about jobs and how much will be gone towards AI, for me that comes down to like, well, what can a group of creatives do about that? And maybe for me that's where I would see a benefit for it. But again, I'm just me, so I'll unionize with myself. And
all right. Thank you for the question. Thank you for the answers. I think we're going slightly towards the end of the discussion panel, and I would like to end it up with this one, I think, which says, what is your biggest failure and regrets of the past decade? And I would maybe just to cheer it up a bit on this and end up with a light mood. What maybe was your biggest learning from the past decade as well? Based on your biggest failure. What would
No, I feel like this is going to be like one of those kind of things where you go to the interview and you said, my biggest weakness is being a perfectionist. Because it's basically going to be that. Like my biggest failure was definitely like embarking on a comic book and then going like 3 times over deadline, like taking 8 years instead of 3 years. I think I have a pervasive tendency to overestimate what I can get done in a certain time frame, and I don't think I've learned that lesson.
I think for me, there was when I was first started working in the generator and making tools field, I got approached to work on a nationwide campaign service year-end sort of thing, and they had been like using my tool for some of the mock-up stuff, and they asked if I would like come on and help develop this tool, and I said no to it because I think I was too afraid too much. I talked myself out of it, and I think about that going back, and part of me is a little relieved that I didn't embark on that journey, but the other part's kind of has full of regret on like what kind of a failure that would be if it was a failure, So I guess I wish I would have had courage and said yes to that project, even if it did kind of end catastrophistically, because I think there were a lot of things I could have learned there that I could have applied to now. And looking back on it now, and I still think, like, could I have pulled that off? I don't know if I could have at that time, but I still wish I would have said yes just to see what would happen.
All right.
That's a loaded one. I have 1,000,001 failures in the last decades. But I don't see them as failures. I see them as learning moments because it made me who I am today. Without those failures, I don't would be here sitting. Regrets, I don't believe in regrets, right? I will if I think about regret, I would change some decisions I made that I'm still paying for now, right? But I don't regret them because, again, there's no failure. You feel like a failure, but years later, when you see it in hindsight, you are gonna notice that that failure needed to happen to be where you are at that moment. So that was a lot of my spiritual crazy side.
Okay, I think that's a great point to end up there. So thank you very much, Anna,
Thank
Kiel,
you.
and Carlos for the panel.
Thank you,
Really,
guys.
really, thank you. And also, big thanks for all of your questions you've put there. I'm sorry I was not able to put all of them, but feel free to continue the discussion in the evening on the bar. And now let's enjoy the coffee break. Thank you very much. Thanks.